These are the 10 things that every Minecraft player should know as soon as they start their world. Now, whether you've been playing Minecraft since its start all the way in the beta, or if you're a brand new player to Minecraft, chances are you occasionally have trouble with surviving, fighting, or playing the game altogether. After all, we've all been there at some point. But these 10 tips should give you the knowledge and equipment you need to not only survive in your game, but thrive. And if you're lucky enough, even beat the game entirely. So sit back, relax, and watch each one of these 10 tips. If you would like to see other ones, or if you think of your own tips, comment them down below, and let me know what you think of these 10 as you watch them. Tip 1. Finding apples. One of the first problems faced by any Minecraft player when they first start out their new world is finding food. Now, the player gets the first 10 minutes of their new world during the daytime to be able to collect enough resources to survive their first night. However, these 10 minutes are clearly not enough time for the player to put down crops and let them grow, and also it can be time consuming for the player to hunt down animals and then cook and eat a meat in a furnace with some coal. But any player in Minecraft should know there's a much easier way to get food than doing all that. Now, one of the first things every Minecraft player comes across in the world are trees, and specifically apples can drop from oak trees. When the player removes all of the wood logs attached to any of the leaves of a tree, those leaves will naturally despawn. However, the leaves of an oak tree and any dark oak tree have an added benefit that not only can they drop saplings when the leaves break, but they also have a small percentage chance of dropping apples. This percentage chance, however, is not extended to any of the other trees, such as birch or acacia wood. It only applies to oak trees. And so, if the player ever finds themselves in a forest surrounded by oak trees, especially on their very first day of Minecraft, one of the first things they should be doing is cutting down those trees. Not only do they get wooden planks for an early start, but the apples they can get from those trees are an early game advantage that no player should ever pass up on. Tip 2. Using the most out of your enchantments. Enchanting one's weapons, armor, and gear is a pretty big part of Minecraft, especially once you get to the late game and you want to clear out different biomes such as the Nether or the End if you want to beat the game in its entirety. However, it's important for the player to use their enchantment levels in a way that makes sense. When the player first gets enchantment levels, it can be tempting to go ahead and throw down an enchantment table, use a little lapis lazuli, and enchant all the stuff they have with them right now. However, that's not the most efficient way for a new player in Minecraft to actually use their levels. Enchantment levels can be harder to gain the higher level a player has, with them requiring more and more experience just to level up. And so, to use the most out of one's experience, you should put down bookshelves surrounding the enchantment table, so that you can get max level 30 enchantments on any of your weapons and armor. It can be the difference between getting a sharpness 1 and a sharpness 4 sword, or a protection 1 and a protection 4 chestplate. And when you factor in that it may be a diamond or netherite chestplate, those added enchantments can mean a lot. So always remember, save up those enchantment levels and make sure you build out a fully fleshed out enchantment table rather than wasting those levels early on. Tip 3. Getting the best early game loot. While the first 10 minutes of every new player's world should be collecting basic loot, the player can use the naturally and randomly generated structures on the map to be able to get a leg up, and even get rare resources and materials like diamonds within your first 10 minutes of a Minecraft world. Structures such as ships out in the sea, pyramids in the desert, and mine shafts buried in the different kinds of mountain biomes allow the player to dig around and find these chests to gain very basic loot or rare loot like diamonds. The iron and diamonds you can get from these structures will give a massive benefit to the player early on when they need to count every single resource that they can possibly get. And in fact, you can even use those structures and mine out the blocks themselves for your own benefit. For example, if you find a ship out in the middle of the sea, you can go ahead and break the treasure chest that you get the loot from and use that as an early storage system. Or you can go ahead and use the pyramid structures in the desert to mine all the limestone down if you ever want to create a little desert pyramid of your own. But the point is, whenever the player finds a randomly generated structure, especially in their early days of their new world, they should always take advantage of it to the fullest. Tip 4. Using the most out of your wood tools. After the first 5 minutes of your Minecraft world, if even that, the player often completely forgets or gets rid of all the wood tools in their inventory that they use to get stone and iron. But this is not an efficient way to actually use your tools. You see, the player can actually use any wood tool that they create as a fuel source in a furnace, which early on can be pretty invaluable. For example, if the player is mining around, gets some pieces of raw iron, they might not always have coal, as you might have used it to make torches. But if you have all those beginner wood tools in your inventory, that's not a problem. The player can go ahead and throw down a furnace, throw in one of the wood tools in the fuel section, and use the iron armor and the iron ore to go ahead and smelt that and get iron ingots out of that. So not only did the player not waste their tools and their resources making those wood swords and pickaxes early on, but you can actually use those wood tools and essentially upgrade them into iron. So next time you have a bunch of wood tools lying around, don't throw them in the ocean or do that thing where you drop them in a cave and never look at them again. Always make sure, if you can, to use them as a fuel source and create iron out of wood. Tip 5. Making sure iron golems stay healthy. Villages are one of the core parts and most iconic ones of Minecraft. Everyone knows what a villager looks like, sounds like, and villages can serve to give the player a very early game advantage when they need food, armor, weapons, or just general protection. And speaking of protection, the iron golems that spawn in a village can actually be repaired by the player. Now, it's no secret that when mobs attack an iron golem, the iron golem fights back, and any damage that happens to the iron golem while they're fighting can eventually appear as cracks on the skin themselves. But did you know that the player can actually repair those iron golems and make sure that the village remains a safe and protected place for both themselves and the villagers? In fact, all the player needs is to walk up to an iron golem, hold an iron ingot in their hand, and right-click on the iron golem. The player can visually see the golem get repaired, and once there are no more cracks forming in the iron golem's skin, that's how the player knows that the iron golem is fully repaired. So next time you come across a village and use it for protection and a bed that you probably stole from a villager, consider repairing the iron golem. It'll help you, and if you feel like it, it'll also help the villagers in the long run too. And while we're on the subject of helping out your community and doing the best you can to do so, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. I always appreciate the support, and every time I see it, it always means that you guys like this kind of content, and I know to make more of it. So, now that we're halfway, let me know how many of these tips you knew yourself, or more importantly, if these tips are actually going to help you in your own Minecraft world. I know when I first found them, they were interesting, and I wanted to share them with you. So, if these tips helped you out at all, or if you think they'll help out others, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and let me know what you'd like to see in the future. But now, let's go back to the rest of the tips to help you in your Minecraft world. Tip 6. Changing villager jobs. A long time ago, in a galaxy not too far away, Minecraft villagers were changed in an update so that they were either all unemployed or you could give them specific jobs. But did you know the player can actually change the job a villager is assigned to depending on the job block that they're nearest to? Now, all villagers, if they are unemployed and don't have a job, appear with the generic skin of having a brown robe, and whenever you try to right-click to interact with them, they just make a noise at you and shake their head, signaling that they can't really do anything. But the job blocks that are located all throughout a village can be broken and placed down by the player to change the kind of job that a villager has. In fact, when you do this, the villager will approach the job block and change jobs depending on what it corresponds to. So for example, a cartography table will turn a villager into a map maker and sell you map-related items. Or, for example, a Fletcher's table will change a villager to sell you bows, arrows, and anything related to archery. If the player ever wants to change the job of the villager or completely change the kind of trade deals they offer, all they would have to do is break the job block, place it back down, and before you know it, the villager will go ahead and get a new job. So if the player wants to re-roll jobs or make an entire village unemployed, which I'm not sure why you want to do that, breaking down those blocks and putting them back up is a great way to do it. Tip 7. Finding potions out of the Ender Dragon. Making it to the end and ultimately beating the Ender Dragon is the ultimate goal of every Minecraft player. Chances are, even if you're a veteran player, this is a type of goal you always want to achieve in your Minecraft world. However, there's much more that the player can gain from the Ender Dragon fight besides a bunch of experience and a feeling of pride and accomplishment. You may have noticed that during the Ender Dragon fight, as the dragon is flying around and swooping down, one of the dragon's moves have it come all the way down to the ground and begin breathing fire onto the limestone rock below. And in fact, another one of the dragon's attacks fires a ball right at the player and has it explode on the ground. The purple mist that appears on the ground itself is actually something that the player can use and pick up to then further make potions later on, assuming they survive. See, all the player has to do is have a collection of glass bottles in their hand, ideally more than one, walk up to the pool of purple glowing particles on the ground, and right click on it. When the player does this, a bottle of dragon's breath will be transferred into their inventory, using up one of the glass bottles that they right clicked in the area with. With that same dragon's breath glass bottle, the player can then take that and use it in an alchemy stand to make potions. So, should the player survive the Ender Dragon fight, and you should if you follow some of these tips, the player can then go ahead and use all those Ender Dragon Breath glass bottles they collected from the fight to make powerful potions later on, which could help you as you continue to explore the end, or in general if you want to go ahead and fight the Warden or do some other chaotic thing, which once you get that Dragon's Breath potion, you are more than able to do. Tip 8. Respawning the Ender Dragon. And speaking of the Ender Dragon and the fight in general, once you beat the Ender Dragon for the first time and the dragon rises up to crack open in a ball of light and drop in a bunch of experience, the fight doesn't end there. You see, the player has the ability to respawn the Ender Dragon if for some reason you decided that fighting the dragon once wasn't enough. All the player has to do is craft 4 of those little crystals that appear all above the different obsidian podiums around the map. In order to craft it, the player only needs a bunch of glass blocks, some Eyes of Ender, and some gas tiers. So, it will be required of the player to head to the Nether and get a few resources. Once the player does that though, all they need to do is craft 4 of these end crystals, and once they place them all around the end portal that spawns when you defeat the Ender Dragon, that's when the respawn phase starts. Each one of the obsidian podiums will be hit with beams of light extending from those crystals. From there, the healing crystals will respawn on each one of the podiums, including the iron bars that protect the Ender Dragon, and after one final beam of light shooting upwards at the end of this little ceremony, the Ender Dragon will respawn once again, and even give the player a little bit of an achievement too, if this is the first time they've done it. So if you ever find yourself needing experience, and you don't feel like going through and attacking a million mobs just to do it, respawning the Ender Dragon is something you could do. Drops a little bit of experience, helps you fight the Ender Dragon a second time for that feeling of pride and accomplishment, and if you did ever want to get those Dragon's Breath bottles from before, this is another way to do it. Tip 9. Breaking cobwebs and staying alive. One of the most exciting things a player can come across when they're mining deep in the caves below are diamonds. However, we're not all lucky enough to find them. The second most exciting thing can be mineshafts, where the loot chests all around the mineshaft walls and tunnels can give the player the types of loot that they wouldn't either normally find in a cave, or that would take them a very long time to begin with. However, a big danger you find in these caves are cave spider spawners, and surrounding them are a bunch of cobwebs. As any Minecraft player will know, this is a bit of a problem, as the cave spiders can hit the player, dealing damage and inflicting them with poison. So if the player ever gets stuck in a cobweb, it can be disastrous for a run, especially in hardcore. But there is an easy way for the player to be able to defeat cave spider spawners with a very simple item you can craft on your first or second day of Minecraft. If the player has a bucket of water in their hands, and they go ahead and throw it on top of cobwebs, the webs will instantly break right then and there. So the player doesn't have to sit there with their sword manually breaking every single cobweb. Instead of breaking down your sword's durability and exposing yourself to spider attacks, you can instead just use a simple bucket of water to get rid of all those cobwebs and throw down torches on the spawners to make sure nothing damages you. So, when in doubt, don't break your sword in those webs. Go ahead and use a bucket of water. You'll thank yourself, and you'll especially thank your diamonds when you save them on not having to repair a sword every single time you go into the mine shafts. And tip 10. Using maps. This has happened to every Minecraft player before. You're going around exploring through a particularly thick forest or jungle that looked really interesting from far away, and before you know it, you find yourself lost. But if you have one simple item with you, you don't have to be. You see, the player can go ahead and make the map item at any crafting table they throw down, which, once crafted with the necessary ingredients placed in the player's hand and the player right-clicks on it, the map will allow them to see an entire area around the player. However, this area isn't always the most helpful, as if you're lost in a jungle, for example, the map will just show you a bunch of jungle. But even then, this can be fixed. If the player puts down a cartography table, has some extra sheets of paper, and has the original map, the player can go ahead and put the map and the paper in the table and expand the radius of the map. The player is able to do this multiple times, up to 3 or 4, depending on how much paper the player has with them. Each time the player expands the map physically gets bigger, allowing the player to see more of the area if they have it explored, or they can go ahead and map out that area, and the map itself will update in real time. So while most people don't really find much of a purpose for paper or sugarcane other than making bookshelves for an enchantment table, here is one more reason of why you should have paper with you, because making a map and expanding it can be the difference between whether you find your way home or you're lost in the jungle forever. At least it can't be that bad with all the pandas.